Okay, so we are now recording this session, and I have Dot Vedders with me today. And Dot is a member of the St. James chapter of the Daughters of the King in Leesburg, Florida. And Dot has agreed to this interview, and we're excited to share your story with the rest of the daughters, because we're going to record this and then post it on our YouTube channel, and daughters will be able to listen to our conversation forever.
Well, I
So,
hope that they're worthwhile.
okay. So, well, listen, as we get started here, Dot, how long have you been a daughter?
I became a member, I think, in 1979.
Wow.
Ron and I were married in 1978,
Mm-hmm.
and the church that we belonged to, it was his church. I had changed from being a Catholic to being an Episcopalian, and we were married in 1978. And the following year, the Daughters of the King invited me to become a member of their chapter. And at that time, things were very different from the way they are now. I do not remember ever seeing much about preparation, but I went to all the meetings, and I kept getting teased that there would be a test. and But I don't remember a test ever, except that I was eventually considered to be eligible to be a member. And so I was admitted to the Order of the Daughters of the King the following year. I had gone to the meetings every month, and to the prayer meetings that they had, sometimes special prayer meetings after a morning service, a prayer service, healing service. And I went to all of them, and apparently that was what helped me pass the test, because I was admitted. And the interesting thing was, I just felt so bonded with these ladies. There was no ECW at this church, so we were everything. And our pastor would come into all our meetings and frankly give us advice. And we had just a marvelous relationship. And shortly after that, when I became so aware of the motto, I want to serve God. What can I do? What would you have me do? And I found myself serving in more ways than I realized I was going to very quickly, because it was not long after I had become a member that Dorothy Pauley, who was a member of this chapter, and this was in Ohio, by the way, at St. Martin's Episcopal Church in Chagrin Falls. And Dorothy Pauley said, I think it's time that we indoctrinated our new member into some responsibility. And I vote that she become the president of this chapter. And she said it's the only way that she will really, really learn what Daughters is all about, and what we do and why we do it, because just being a member isn't enough service. And so that's what happened. I became the president.
Wow.
And it was an amazing experience, because the ladies, they were so warm and comforting. They voted unanimously, and there I was taking over the helm.
So Dot, if I could just ask you, just to back up for a minute and ask you, what was it that drew you to the Daughters of the King in the first place?
I found myself being friends with so many of the members.
Mhm.
There were about 20 of us in that chapter, and I don't even remember the name of the chapter, but I do remember that they were people that we got to know very well at church.
Mhm.
And we bonded so easily that I felt as though I was part of a family.
Wow.
I was part of a family of sisters,
Mhm.
and we it was just that warmth and that caring
Mhm.
and that togetherness that made me feel a welcome part. And I did learn a lot once I became president, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
thank you for sharing that. It's really what you said just now is just so rich for all of us to hear. And then, okay, so you became the president, and then how did all of this strengthen your, or how did it impact your faith walk?
because there was no ECW, there was so much to do for serving our parish. And we did a lot of outreach in different ways. There was a program in Cleveland, and this we lived outside of Cleveland, called Continue In. It was a house where women who were pregnant were welcomed for help. There's many of them were unwed mothers. Some were women who had been abused and needed escape from their homes. And here was an opportunity at Continue In to go through the pregnancy, to get the kind of care they needed, the help that they needed, and help them not only to prepare for motherhood, but also to make themselves responsible adults who were employable if necessary, who could manage independently if necessary. And Continue In, you see, was an ongoing process for them until they were ready to go independent after the baby was born. And we used to have baby showers, and we would invite all the ladies of the church to come, and we prepared a dinner and had a meeting, and we invited them to. The responsibility was that they had to bring a baby clothing item, and we said don't wrap them, and we hung them up in the undercroft so that everybody could see all the different clothing items. And I remember we took pictures of all those clothing that were brought, and there was such a glow. Everybody, women love motherhood, and we felt a responsibility to help these women in what they were about to face.
Mhm.
It was a very warming experience, and I remember that that the ladies in the church supported it so overwhelmingly. It was unbelievable. It was a good get together for the women of our church. Um, and there were other funny things that happened. Um, this was Province 5, I believe, in and the that whole peninsula area above Ohio took in
Mhm.
all of Michigan. And I remember getting a call from a lady at the Michigan diocese because she had learned that I don't know how she got my name. Well, I was president, so it must have been listed somewhere. And she called me and asked me if I could give her any advice about attending the provincial meeting, the conference that was to be held in the fall at a small town in east of us in Ohio. And I think it was in Geauga County. And I want to say that the name of the town was I can't remember now. But I said, it's such a small town. I don't even know if there's a hotel there. But I've got there were two women who were going to come to this conference from the Michigan diocese.
Mhm.
And I said, the one of them, her name was Sue. And I said, well, why don't you come to my house? Because it's a short drive and we could drive daily for the meetings. And I have a guest room that has twin beds. So they came and we went to the meetings every day and enjoyed each other's company. Well, we sort of lost track with each other, although we did continue to communicate a little bit. And they were very thankful for the opportunity to have a private home to stay in. And it was not much of a drive to go to every day's meeting. Well, it was much to my surprise when later I learned that was it 1996, that Sue Schlanbusch became the national president.
Oh my goodness.
she
Wow.
was she was my guest in my twin bedded room in a very old fashioned in fact in the we lived in the historical district
Hmm.
of uh, of Hudson, and there she was. And I don't remember the name of the other lady, but it was interesting and so dynamic to me to realize that she was the one who started the strategic planning committee.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
1997.
How
And
about that?
and then as luck would have it, my life ended in Ohio and we moved to Florida, where we joined a church that had no chapter and a
Mm,
rector who did not want a chapter, thought we
really?
were too charismatic. So I became a daughter at large, but there was nothing organized in this diocese, Central Florida diocese, for daughters at large.
Hmm.
And I was kind of lost until I thought, well, I'm going to find out if I can at least go to the board meetings and and get to know some of the ladies, and we'll see what happens.
Hmm.
And so I started going to board meetings, and guess who I met? Cressida Jackson.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
my life just fell into wonderful, wonderful company. And um, we finally, it took a long time because we needed to get our priest, our rector retired, and he had been there for 26 years. Now that
Mm,
means that people didn't really know anybody else. And even though we made a profile about the things that we wanted differently, it didn't happen because people couldn't adjust to the changes. It took a
mm,
while before we finally got a rector who was more experienced and able to make the change for us and with us that
mhm.
we really wanted. His name was Jay Lambert, and
Mm.
he knew all about Daughters of the King because his mother was one
Oh.
in
Hmm.
Sarasota.
Hmm.
And so he was very, very helpful. And in 2007, we got three other members of daughters who were daughters at large, members of our parish, who wanted to become charter members. And
Wonderful.
he organized us for us. And in fact, we took the name. Martha and Mary because that was his mother's chapter.
Hmm.
And we felt that we should dedicate it to her because, and to their chapter because they were so instrumental in helping us get together and form a chapter.
Wow, that's a wonderful story.
It was unbelievable,
Hmm.
but, and Jay was so helpful to us in so many ways. Um, but I, when I think about it, it was the following year, 2008, because we had periodic meetings inviting the women of the parish to come and learn about daughters.
Mhm.
And and I had already become friends with Cressida, and she came a few times. And Barbara Spencer, who
Oh,
was
yes.
important at one time, she
Mhm.
is since deceased,
Mhm.
um, came to some of our meetings to talk about what Daughters was all about. And finally, in 2008, we became officially a chapter when we had inherited, I say admitted, uh, new members. And we had about 20 or 21 at the time.
That's
It was
wonderful.
interesting because um, so many women didn't quite understand why they would have to pay to become a member of something that they were automatically ECW members.
Mm.
Why do I need to pay more? What's so different? And it took a while for them to understand that we are in order, that we are committed to a life of prayer and service. We are different from ECW. We
Mhm.
choose to be different. We choose to serve God in a different way,
Mhm.
and we commit ourselves to that obligation. Um, and so finally, we have we have done well. We are a strong chapter, and we have gone through, I think, a lot of baptismal fire because shortly after, let's see, we organized our full membership or first membership in 2008. In 2014, we suddenly got a call. I was going to all the board meetings. And by the way, I kept saying to Cressida, who was president of the Diocesan Assembly at that time in Central Florida, I want something to do. I want to do more than just be a member. And so
Mhm.
she created the Outreach Project, the
Ah.
mission to have a project to serve as an outreach every year. And
Mhm.
I became the chairman of that. So I went to all the board meetings. I went to chapter meetings in order to explain what we were all about. And serving Haiti, education equals hope, was one of those projects in the original years. And I came across, I just absolutely love this. I can't believe I still have it. I came across the Royal Cross where Cressida, president, always had an article, and she referred to me about one of the dots in her life. There were two
Ah.
Dorothys. One was the uh, devotional chairman, and I became the outreach chairman.
Mhm.
And she said, "This Dot is a diminutive lady, and at the time drove a canary yellow souped up Mustang GT. During those years, there was not a meeting of event that I attended in the diocese where she was not present. Her leadership as outreach chair led to a record number of donations in support of that year's project. And we did. We really raised a lot of money for our projects for years in a row. Um, and I love that because it was the way I felt. You can't be a wimp about something if you commit yourself. You can't just sit in the sidelines. You have to be a doer. You have to want to achieve for God.
Mhm.
And that was what being the outreach chairman meant to me, that I
Mhm.
was to stir up interest in serving others, in spreading the gospel, in modeling God's prayers, God's wishes for us to be like him, only like him. We cannot be him, but we obey. And obey means loving and wanting to serve. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. What I can do, I ought to do. What I ought to do by the grace of God, I will do. Lord, what will you have me do? And that's what we have to be. We
Mhm.
have to say, we will do something. We will not just sit on our heels. To
That's
me, it's being worthy of being a Christian, worthy of being God's people. It's modeling, which is really evangelizing.
wow.
What can I say?
That's, oh my
I
goodness, that is just so
It is
powerful.
so important to me to be a daughter. I feel uh and I wish that more daughters would step out of the canoe and work more to meet other daughters.
Mhm.
I think COVID set us back a lot, but more should go to retreats, more should go to the fall assemblies, more should go to the province gatherings, and even to a national if you can. I was lucky enough to be able to go to one in Indiana once, and I treasured that experience.
Mhm. It's
And
very
I drove
special.
to a couple of meetings when we had one in Orlando, and I think that was 1996.
Mm.
Crashed the meetings.
Wow. Well, what you've said is just so powerful. And, it seems that God equips the called, because it is a bit scary when you step out of your comfort zone. And yet you have found the energy that you needed to
Mm-hmm.
get done whatever you were called to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
that's a beautiful thing.
Do you know, Nadine, I felt bad that I started late because
Oh,
I was already 50 when I started being a daughter.
mhm.
And there was so much to make up for.
So,
And I think more women, younger women, should become involved. I wish we could somehow urge more young ladies to become involved so that they have more time to share their love of God and their desire to serve. I guess we're just too busy when we're younger raising our children, and many mothers are still working and don't have
mhm,
the time. Um, there are just so many conflicts that we have to fight.
mhm. That's true. Um, and yet we do have younger daughters in our diocese. And what they tell us is that this has been more or less a lifeline for them,
It
because
is.
they're in that stage of life, managing families and a career, and uh, extremely busy. And they see being with the daughters of the king as something that is nurturing and a place for spiritual feeding. And that has been very valuable to them.
That
So,
is so true. So
mhm.
true. I wish that we could convince more people to do that. The
Well, we're
Daughters
going
of
to,
the King, when we first started at St. James in 2007, was chiefly older women
mhm,
because they needed a place. There wasn't any place in the church for them to really feel like part of the church,
mhm,
part of service. And that was in a way a bad start, and yet it was important because it gave them a sense of belonging and a sense of
mhm,
purpose. And so we were able to get much more involved. Um, but it became looked upon as something you join only when you're old enough.
Mm. Well, we're going to try to break that paradigm
Yeah.
and change it and really make an effort to reach out to women of all ages
Hmm. Hmm.
and different generations to come, because there's a richness in being a daughter, as you know.
Yes,
And
absolutely. You know, if we could get more junior daughters
mhm,
programs going, I think our church is ready for that. We have many
wonderful.
more families with young people, and
Mhm,
we should somehow instill an interest in becoming a junior daughter, because then there's a transitional opportunity.
right. Absolutely. So that's great. What you've said so far is wonderful. I'm so glad you were willing to share. And uh, as far as prayer and service and evangelism, how has that changed for you over time? Because obviously you've been a daughter for over 40 years.
Right.
So how has the prayer service and evangelism changed over time for you?
Prayer comes first in my life.
Mhm.
I find myself praying more. I find myself praying at unusual times when I'm, and I still drive, would you believe it, at 95. I'm careful. I find myself praying, not that I'm going to make it, but that it's an opportunity for me to talk to God. My favorite passage in Psalms is "Be still and know that I am Lord." Psalm 46, verse 10. And I find that I need opportunities to speak to God in a way that I feel as though I'm talking to him. A long time ago latched onto a book called My Heart, Christ's Home by Robert Munger, Munger. And it's a little book that I have repeatedly given to every new member of our chapter, because it invites people to, I think I have a summary here. It says it's a booklet about building a relationship with Jesus.
Mhm.
That Jesus helps the narrator clear the house. He's got a kitchen and a living room. And he takes Jesus through the rooms, and they find a place that the kitchen is not the place to meet. That's the working place. That's for
Mhm.
Martha. But the living room is the meeting place. And you can get closer to God by sitting quietly wherever you are, or being quiet wherever you are, alone with him, so that you can speak to him. And those prayers, because your conversation is really your prayer, you worship, you respect, you honor him, because that's the way we treat our friends. And then we don't worship them, but we do, in a sense. We respect and we treat them with great kindness and great love. And then we can delve in the discussions about things that are important in our lives. And that's the opportunity that we have to really hear God and hear his word and feel comfortable with the advice that we receive. I think I look back on my life and I see a sinewy path, a
Mm.
crooked path. It's a long one because I'm so old. And I see little places where I misstepped, and then, oops, I backed up. And I think, that's where God talked to me. That's where I listened and I made amends. I changed what I was going to do because I didn't listen to God at first. And we need to take time to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Is there a question that you wish that I would have asked you today? Maybe an area that we didn't touch on that you'd really like to share with daughters who are going to listen to our conversation here in the future?
No, but I think my advice is not to turn down any opportunity to stretch out, to reach out and serve God in new ways that you might not have ever dared to do. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to serve God. I remember we were just a young chapter, and we were asked. Cressida was the one who asked. She because we needed to make a quick change at the last minute. We needed a place for the fall assembly in 2014 because the church where it was scheduled had split. There were some things that caused some disaccord, so there was a schism, and Bishop Brewer was the new bishop in our Central Florida diocese who absolutely needed a change, and he thought our church would be a perfect place because it was centrally located in the diocese, relatively central. And I can still remember because I was serving that Eucharist that morning, and I said to Father Lambert, I was asked about this, and I wonder what you think, because I said I'd find out from you. He said, you didn't say no, did you? I said, no, I didn't say no. I said I was going to ask you. He said, well, we'll do it. We'll do it no matter what. And we did.
How wonderful.
It scared the new members tremendously, and we had so much to plan for. Many of them didn't know anything about what a fall assembly was because we really were so new. And but it worked out so beautifully. Church members who were not part of Daughters at all came together and helped us and helped provide the food. And we had a packed house for a little church. And I can still remember having to call the men's club to serve the food and asking to have the lavatory fixed up because we didn't have very good lavatory facilities. I said to the senior warden, where should we put the porta potties? and that hurriedly made a big change in lavatory facilities. And the couple who volunteered to help with the meal said, well, there's so many people, you're not going to be able to have a buffet. We'll have to somehow have the service served to each table. And I said, well, that's going to be hard to do. Who's going to do it? He said, well, we'll call the men's club. And then sure enough, the men's clubs came out and they wore white shirts and bow ties and they served the food, and all 200 and some ladies and the priests were served the meal in 10 minutes. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. But it opened the door for people in our church to understand what Daughters of the King was all about.
Sure. Yeah.
And it just created such an opening for us, such an outlet for everybody to understand that when we say we're going to do something, we do it.
That's fantastic.
And that's what daughters need to do.
Yeah.
What will you have me do?
Well, and I was just at your the Northwest Deanery meeting that you sponsored.
Yes.
St. James, and it was a wonderful day, very well planned. And so you're all continuing with this.
Yes. We have a president now who is really interested in promoting more outreach. She's very, very effective at that.
Yeah, that's great. And so, Dot, as you mentioned, you're always asking, Lord, what would you have me do? And you mentioned that you're 95 years young. And so I know that you're not just sitting around and letting other people do things. What are you doing in serving now?
Well, it's hard for me to do much. I just lost my husband a little over a month ago,
I
and I'm
know.
making a lot of adjustments there.
Mhm,
Um, but I I haven't been able to get to the meetings, but I'm going to get back to our meetings. Our
mhm,
next meeting is this Wednesday, in fact, and I hope to be there. Um, I'm hoping that we can instill some interest in um, in linking the young girls
mhm,
into some kind of program that might be a junior daughters program.
mhm,
I'd like to see that happen. I'm not sure if it would work, but we do have a lot of younger families now, and there must be enough. It doesn't take many, just a few
mhm,
girls, and
mhm.
to understand that as junior daughters, we can have fun together and grow in the Christian love that daughters is all about.
Well, that's a wonderful calling, and
I just hope we can do it somehow.
yeah. Well, we have our director or our chair for junior daughters uh, that can help you in your efforts.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh,
just
good.
let me know when you're ready, and
Okay.
she'll be thrilled to get involved. She helped
Maybe.
St. James and Norman Beach with their institution of a junior daughter chapter just about a
Mm-hmm.
month ago.
Mm-hmm. I
So
wonder if we could get her to come to one of our meetings.
I'm sure I will mention
And
it to her.
what is her name?
Her name is Jamie Roberts, and she's from Grace Church in Port Orange. And I will let her know that that you have some interest in creating a junior
That
chapter. And
name is very familiar.
yes, I'm sure you've met her. She's very active.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I would
anyway,
like that.
I will
And
speak to her, and I just think it's extraordinary, Dot, um, that at this time in your life, and I'm very sorry for the loss of your husband,
thank you.
uh, and yet you stepped out. I think it was just a couple of weeks later that you joined us at the deanery meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and now you've agreed to this interview, and so I really appreciate that. And you are just an extraordinary person, and we're blessed to have you as a sister in Christ in our diocese.
Thank you. I am proud to be a
Yes,
sister in the
I know.
life of Christ in this diocese.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you for never sitting around and thinking that, it's you're too many years young to do something. You obviously are willing to serve um, forever. So thank you, and good luck with your new adventure. And we'll try to help you.
Thank
And
you.
in closing, is there anything else that you would like to share? I just so appreciate everything that you've shared with us today.
This is so different. This is off the subject completely, but
Mhm,
grieving is such a private process that I miss my husband very, very much.
mhm,
And the constant reminders of him in this house
mhm.
and in everything that we did together over the years just eats me emotionally sometimes. But the grieving can't stop you from wanting to live for the Lord. And I think that has to be important in a person's life.
Well,
My husband would not want me to just curl up and vegetate.
Mhm.
He always encouraged me to be active. And so we can grow in our grieving, and that's important. Thank you.
Um, Dot, I really have nothing to add. That is a beautiful way to end our conversation today. You're going to be an inspiration to many daughters who listen.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. And you have a blessed day.
And you too. God bless you.
God bless you. Okay.
And now.